5 p.m. Monday, October 25th, 2021. Our meeting virtually pursuant to AB 361. That's Assembly Bill 361. Madam Interim Executive Director, would you please call the roll?
First, can we jump to Pledge of Allegiance first?
Oh, sure.
Yep, let's do Pledge of
Yeah,
Allegiance.
great. Thank you for the reminder. Would you please lead it?
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Gonna step to roll call. Chair Wizard.
Present.
Vice Chair Buter.
You're muted, Hans.
I see him. Commissioner Healy.
Kevin?
He's muted. There he is.
there.
I'm present. Sorry. Bad
Okay.
connection. I'm present.
Okay. Commissioner Ballesteros.
Present.
Commissioner Gama.
Present.
Commissioner Miller.
Present.
And Commissioner Goodwin.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And before we get to public comments, so the public has the opportunity to hear it before they give their comments, I'm reminded that I failed to ask for an agenda item to replace me on the Finance and Development Committee now that I'm the chairperson. So I would love to hear a motion by someone, if so interested, to agendize now, which would require a 2/3 vote, agendize now a new business item to appoint a replacement to the Finance and Development Committee so that they have that full balance of commissioners and that to replace me.
I
I'll make
make
that
a
motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. I heard Commissioner Miller and then Commissioner Healy. Let's go out to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board related to the last minute docketing of a new business item related to replacing me on the board, excuse me, on the Finance and Development Committee of the Housing Authority Board? Okay, I'll leave it open just for a second longer. I know that we're still admitting people. Any public comment related to the new agenda item to replace me on the Finance and Development Committee as I've come off following the election of new board officers? I don't see any hands raised in the Zoom. Anybody on the phone, Sandy, that has
Yes,
reached out
there
to you?
is. Yes, there is.
No,
Ms.
for this-
Wooten or Ms. Rodriguez?
Do they have
are
any
you-
comments about this new agenda
No.
item, this
Oh,
new business
not
item?
on- No, not on the.
Okay,
Not on the
all right.
new.
Seeing no public comment, we'll
Hold on,
close that. And I'll remind the board that this is a 2/3 roll call vote to add an agenda item at the last minute. Madam Clerk / Executive Director?
Okay. Chair Wizard.
Aye.
Vice Chair Buter.
Yes.
Commissioner Healy.
Yes.
Commissioner Ballesteros.
Yes.
Commissioner Gama.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodwin.
Francine?
I'm here.
She's
Yes.
coming. Okay. All right. So we will agendize replacing the new chair from the Finance Committee. So that will be an agenda item on this meeting.
Thank you very much.
8E.
Yeah, and Sandy, can you have the record reflect that it was a unanimous vote?
Sure.
Thank you very much. So we will now move to comments for the public. Anyone in the public with comments for the Board of Commissioners?
I have
On
someone
item-
on the phone.
Sure, on items not agendized for discussion this evening, general public comment, please.
Ms.
raise your-
Wooten or Ms. Rodriguez, is this, this is not an agenda item. This is a public comment, right?
Correct.
Okay, can you hear her?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead, ma'am, and please give your name.
My name is Martha Rodriguez, and I live here at Pioneer Village Apartments, where I moved in here 3/1/2015. No statement on mold. when I signed my contract. In March 19th of 2017, I was diagnosed with cancer. No cure. The first inspection, I had the paperwork stating there was moles. Now, what my problem is I've been fighting this. I've been calling HDC. I've been calling John Stewart Company because I had an overflow issue that was not my fault. It was due to your faulty plumbing. That's a statement from the Roto-Rooter. And so I hired an air quality test because I knew something was going on. Because the overflow issues have been happening since 2014. And that's on record with Disaster Clean, where they violated my civil rights. They vandalized my apartment. They burned my couches. You name it, they did it. And there's recordings where HTC's employees said there was moles, and then he tells enforcement, code enforcement, there was no mold. The recording states everything, because I knew all this time who I was dealing with, a bunch of corrupted people. Not only that they weren't happy with, I got cancer with no cure. I had a stroke. They lied on police reports. They erased the footage on there, and they're still harassing me, taking my money. This is my life. Your company shorted it. It's your fault that you hired all these people to do all this corruption. And I have it facts. I have it with police reports. I have everything. And HTC knew all the time. So did the John Stewart Company. And still nothing has been done. Not only did you guys cause me to get something, you're endangering people's lives because they're not doing the construction site right. Because I've got 30 years experience. That's why they had me removed. And your attorney had me removed illegally to do illegal work. I have facts. There's nothing. I've been dealing with you guys since 2017. I'm tired. You guys have no right shortening my life. And again, so I'm going to let you guys put a dollar amount, and I want a response in 2 days, because you know what? I've been dealing with you guys since 2017, and when Starla Warren I had an appointment at a meeting, she told me, take your glasses off. Take my glasses off? What's that got to, I'm blind. What gives her the right to tell me if I find out that the plumbing had issues, I'm going to file a lawsuit? No. The tables have turned. I'm going to file a lawsuit on both of the companies, John Stewart and HTC, because you know what? I've tried everything I could, and nothing. That they haven't told you that I found half a bag of needles at 10 a.m. and I found heroin on the premises, found your doors unlocked, and meth.
Ma'am?
Cost you guys a lawsuit.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to let you know that we typically hear public comment for about 3 minutes, so I would ask you to bring your comments to a close.
Okay.
Is that all, Ms. Wooten? I think there's somebody else also on the line. Are you there?
Oh, shoot.
Marta or Ms. Wooten?
Yes.
Are you ready to speak to the Board of Commissioners for the Housing Authority?
Did you get Marta first?
Yes, I did. She's already spoken.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Ma'am,
You
my
have,
name,
hold on just a moment. The chair of the board wishes to say something.
ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you. My name is John. I'm the chair of the board here. We typically give folks about 3 minutes to give their comments, so I just want you wanted to let you know that, so you'd be mindful of your time.
Okay, yes. My name is Ann Wooten, and I'm a tenant at Tynan Village Apartments. And there's a problem with mold there, and it's affecting my health, where I get bad asthma and bronchitis. Asthma all the time, and when I get sick, I get bronchitis from it. So they're currently tearing down all the walls on the outside with the bad rot in the plywood there. And it's a pretty terrible situation. They're on the second building, taking the outside walls down. And my breathing situation is pretty impaired from the mold situation. So something needs to be done to remedy the situation. It's been an ongoing thing. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sandy, do we have anybody else waiting to speak?
No, there's nobody else.
Okay. Darlene, are you, can you follow up with Sandy to get those phone numbers for Marta and Ann? And I appreciate that Marta was specifically referencing HDC and John Stewart, but if we can connect with them just to make sure that we follow through on the things they raised to us, that would be great.
Yes, I will follow up tomorrow.
Great, thank you so much. I'm just going to take a quick peek at the participant list, make sure no one has their hands up. I don't see anybody else, and I heard Sandy say there was no one waiting to speak any longer. So with that, I will close public comment and we'll move to presentations. Darlene, I see a certificate of
Yes.
awarded to Mario Mendoza for 25
Yes.
years of loyal service. Is that
25 years.
He's
good
on,
Lord,
he's on
great
the,
job.
And
He's-
Mario's on the Zoom with
Yeah,
Jose Acosta.
Mario's here.
25 years. Mario, do you want to say something? We're very appreciative of your service and your dedication to the Housing Authority, and we appreciate you and the efforts that you put forward in helping the agency move forward and servicing the tenants and the population within the county of Monterey. You want to say anything?
Well, the pleasure's been all mine. I've been here for a while and I really enjoyed well, not every day, but almost. No, but everything's been good. You know, I love the place where I work for. We got good people around us, and that's all that matters, you know, being surrounded by good people.
We appreciate you so much.
Guys, I appreciate it, doing a great job. I hope we can continue.
Yes, yes.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And Mario,
Good
just
afternoon, guys. Okay.
yeah, I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You know, this agency, you know, we sit here as commissioners, but people like you are the ones who are doing the work. You're the ones in the units, you're the ones on the properties, you're the ones looking at the paperwork to make sure that we're doing everything above board and in compliance with the law. And without you, this organization doesn't work. So your esprit de corps, your positive attitude is one of the reasons why we are as successful as we are. And with that, I'll ask if any other commissioners would like to offer a few words. And the floor is yours if so.
I'll go. Thank you very much. 25 years, that's remarkable in one organization. And thank you very much for all them dedicated years to the Housing Authority. It is appreciated. And as the chair said, you know, the workers are the bread and butter of what makes the organization work. So thank you.
I just want to add one thing. You know, I worked, well, actually I lived in La Posada when I was young, many moons ago. And you know what, I got the opportunity to work here, and you know, I jumped on it, you know, because I love the organization. Gave my mom and us a little legs up to keep going forward, you know, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. You're exemplary for the kind of work we try to do, and now you're turning that around to offer it to other people, and it's just that's what it's all about. So I just thank you so much for your many years of service, and I hope that you stay with us as long as you're able to.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much, Mario.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. See ya. Have a good evening.
Mario.
Thank you, Mario.
And then our next presentation is Brown Act training. Should I take it from the well-dressed individual that he will be leading that conversation?
Mr. Alan Smith is here with us, and he is from Grunsky Law, and he is going to be conducting our Brown Act training.
Great.
Okay, let me see.
How do you do, everybody? I am one of Tom Griffin's partners, as is Cheryl Ferguson, who will co-present with me. Not having presented before this board, I just looked at the board background, and I fear that many, if not all of you, know all of the stuff that I'm going to say, but perhaps I can lay it out in an organized fashion, and there may be something that somebody has forgotten, or I may help to explain it somehow. So that's the goal here. And then Cheryl is going to focus in on one of the Brown Act closed session exceptions, real estate, and talk about that a little bit. And then at the end, if there are any questions, I'm hoping to get through this in about 20 minutes. And so that's sort of the goal here. And Cheryl, if you can put up our short PowerPoint and we'll kind of walk through that. We do have one short video during it. Hopefully that'll go off. It's about a 2-minute video.
Sorry, I thought I was sharing this screen, but I guess I'm not.
Okay, what do I need to do to help you? And where do I go?
Well, good question.
Let me go to participants. That's not working.
I think if you make Ms. Ferguson a co-host, she'll get screen sharing permission.
I don't think I have the co-host. If I co-host her, I get dropped off. Or at least that's, remember, Darlene, when we tried that before, they said it would drop me off, but let me see if I can hover over her and figure out something here.
If all fails, I can do it without the video, but
We'll give it a minute longer. I think it might work out. And I think, I have the option to share my screen. So I think there's, I don't think that if Sandy gets booted out, that the meeting would end.
Okay, so if it's just the PowerPoint, I can do that.
There you go.
There we go. There, she's good.
In
Awesome.
living color. Thank you so much.
Yay, there we go.
There we go.
Be able to see it now?
Yep.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so the Brown Act, one of the most controversial and complicated laws that we all work with in the state, especially those of us in public agencies. Cheryl, next screen. So the history, briefly, enacted way back in 1952 as a result of a 10-article series in the San Francisco Chronicle titled Your Secret Government by a reporter back when newspapers had reporters and things were different. And he conducted a 6-week investigation, and there was public uproar, and eventually he got together with the then general counsel for the League of California Cities, and together they drafted the Brown Act, the Ralph M. Brown Act. Of course, Jerry was still back in the seminary in those days, I guess. Back when it started, it was 686 words. Probably any one of the sections exceeds 686 words at this time. It's gotten created by a combination of litigation, which typically results in legislation, which then in turn results in more litigation. And so it's a moving target as we go down the line. Next slide, Cheryl. So the basic tenet is, of course, that public agencies, this is the legislative intent, public agencies exist to aid in the conduct of people's business, and it is the intent of the law to be open and that deliberations be conducted openly. Next slide, Cheryl. So before I leave that, I just wanted to say that in my experience, my nature is when I get appointed to a board, I served on a community college trustees board for 26 years. And I always had to kind of remind myself that I wasn't trying to just protect the agency. I was always trying to conduct the public's business. And it was always better to have things out in the open, if at all possible, assuming, of course, that I could protect the interests of the agency. So overview, 4 types of public meetings. There's regular meetings. That's what we're having tonight. They're set in advance at the beginning of the year, so the public kind of knows when they're going to be. The agenda has to go out 72 hours in advance. It has to be published. It has to be sent to everybody who's requested it. It has to be on the website, and it has to go to you folks. Then they have special meetings. Those are 24-hour meetings and 24-hour notice meetings. You usually need some resolution by the chair or the board, depending on the local rules, to have one of those. There are adjourned meetings, which means that you didn't get finished with the business that was on the regular meeting agenda that night or the special meeting that night. So you can continue the meeting, which becomes an agendized meeting. You do not have to renotice it as long as it's within 5 days. And then there's the emergency meeting. So that's a Paradise Fire, Loma Prieta earthquake, 90 or the Pajaro floods, those types of meetings where there's no time to send out notices. And so you move quickly. Cheryl, next slide.
We can probably go through these because I think you covered most of the.
So regular meetings, regular time, usually set annually, open to public. As Cheryl points out, they have to be ADA compliant. Locations and posted 24 hours in advance. Next slide. Special, we've pretty much covered that. Next slide. Emergencies, you can have 1 hour notice sometimes, and usually it has to be some disruption or threatened disruption of public facilities. In a dire emergency, crippling disaster, mass destruction, terrorist activity, or something really, really, really big. We don't see that too much around our area here. Next slide, Cheryl. So the first question is, what is a meeting? And people think of a meeting as something where, you know, you send a Outlook request or something like that, but a meeting could be a chance encounter at a grocery store. It could be a lot of different things. It's where people get together, board members get together at the same time in the same place. And a meeting is, they are hearing, discussing, deliberating, or taking some action, not the final action maybe, but attempting to reach concurrence on an issue that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the agency. So that's what a meeting is. Go ahead, Cheryl, next slide.
Continue.
Next slide, yeah. Okay, so there are 8 exceptions to the meeting definition. And
Mr. Smith, I apologize for interrupting. Could we go back one? I think I don't remember hearing about the daisy chain and serial meetings. If you could
Not
just
there
cover
yet.
that slide.
Not there yet. We're doing that on this one.
I think we're going to cover it.
It's the third bullet point here.
Brad, I think we had skipped this slide, but maybe I was mistaken.
Okay, Cheryl, why don't you go back one and see if you missed something?
Okay, I did back up one. So can we go through these bullet points?
Everybody good?
Lost was this, so.
Yeah, I remember hearing about, you know, the same time and location here discussed deliberate.
Right. So this slide shows examples of prohibited potential meetings, things that people may not really think of as formal meetings, such as sticking around after a board meeting and having a conversation that talks about subject matter that was covered in the board meeting is still a meeting, subject to, and it's prohibited because it's not been noticed and all of that. A meeting could be anytime agency matters are discussed at a social event. Hub and spoke is essentially when you have someone who communicates a matter to another board member, and then communication comes back to the person in the middle, and then that person talks to the next board member, and it comes back. And so that's kind of a hub and spoke concept that's still considered a meeting because communication is actually flowing between a majority of board members, and that's prohibited. Daisy chain emails are when board member A sends an email to board member B, who then forwards it to board member C, and so on. Those are all considered communications where if it involves a majority of board members, that's a meeting. And another thing that started kind of popping up more now with social media is you might have a board member post something in response to a blog or whatever, and then another board member may comment on that. And those things can kind of quickly evolve out of control, and if you end up having enough of the board commenting on a particular post or blog, that's a meeting. Sorry.
I agree. I always refer to it as collective concurrence. If you've got more than 2 in your case, more than 3, having a conversation that leads to collective concurrence, then you have potential problems. And even if you don't get to 3, maybe there's just 2, the closer you get to that number, the more likely it is that somebody will say something to somebody else, and you'll be conducting business that should occur at the meeting, but not at the meeting. Next slide, Cheryl. So the exceptions, the first one is the Wolf versus Fremont exception. And that's kind of a tricky one where any of you, or any 3 of you actually, could meet with your executive director, and he or she could explain things to you, find out your thoughts and your directions about where you wish to take a particular issue or a particular option you want to exercise. And you can have those discussions as long as in the meeting, nobody indicates what their vote would be or leads others to think what their vote would be, leading to collective concurrence. It's a way for the executive director to communicate with the board members relevant issues, answer questions that might come up, and prepare them for a public meeting so that it can be a meaningful meeting. So Wolf versus Fremont, of course, is about a former council member who sued the city based on a conversation about fire alarm systems and involved the police chief and the fire chief and a variety of others. And the city eventually won. The second one is an individual contact. So if you see somebody in a grocery store, one of the other of you, you can say, hey, how about that meeting last night? I would have gone this way, I would have gone that way. 2 of you can actually do that. But what happens is you run the risk of a third one showing up, or one of you saying something to somebody else, and then it can kind of get out of control. So it's always easier just to do everything in a public meeting so that you don't run that risk, and always being able to say that I don't have those kind of conversations outside the context. Conferences open to the public. You can go to those and you can actually have discussions if it's part of the agenda in the public meeting. Community meetings, you can go to those and you may express your opinions as part of the program, but you can't take any action. You have to be careful. It's sort of like social media. If you say, if Commissioner B and C would come around, I'm Commissioner A, we'd almost be there. Those kind of conversations are the ones at community meetings that cause problems. And they also have the risk of due process issues. Next slide, Cheryl. You can go to meetings of other legislative bodies, the Board of Supervisors, a Planning Commission, a variety of others that are open in public. And you can talk on items that are part of the agenda. So they're on the agenda and they're within your subject matter jurisdiction, and you can do that. Standing committees, you can go to those as an observer, but you can't speak. And social ceremonial events, okay to go to those. Chamber of Commerce, some sort of, groundbreaking or something like that. No discussion of matters within the jurisdictions of the agency can be discussed. And there's one for grand jury testimony. The grand jury has the authority to take testimony of the entire board or one or more members of the board, and they can do that in closed session. Next slide, Cheryl. So the agendas basically have to have the time and location. The items transacted or discussed in the open session have to be listed, and they have to be reasonably described. There's no magic words. There is language that says generally you don't have to exceed 25 words. So there's a little bit of a magic here. It's like, who was it? Mark Twain said, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have time, so I wrote a long one. And so it takes time to narrow this stuff down and focus it. But generally, all you have to have is 25 words on the agenda. And the trick is to put enough and put the right words in there so the public will know what you're talking about, and they'll know whether to show up or not. Items to be transacted or discussed in closed session must be on, and some provision about how to request disability-related accommodations, which is usually, you can make a phone call, these devices, hearing devices are available, whatever it happens to be, and that's outside the scope of this presentation. Next slide. Anybody, typically it's the newspapers, can request a copy of the agenda. And if so, the clerk of the board is required to send it to them for a year. They have to renew it every year and can't charge for that. Next one, Cheryl. So free speech, you get a lot of people who, if you're in a public agency, are dissatisfied with what the public agency does. Hopefully this will be a kind of illustrative YouTube video of what happened in Santa Cruz. Some of you may know about this a few years ago. Cheryl, go ahead.
You might have to watch an ad, sorry.
In Santa Cruz, Robert Norse, he is the man who did a Nazi salute at a city council meeting 9 years ago, did it again at tonight's meeting. The March 2002 salute landed him in jail and spurred a legal battle that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. With more on what provoked Norse to make the salute again at tonight's council meeting and the reaction, Action News reporter Tom Miller is live in Santa Cruz. Tom?
Well, Dan, Norse has joined the Occupy Santa Cruz movement, and tonight he marched from here at San Lorenzo Park over to the city council chambers, and he was met by a mixed reaction from the crowd there. And Norse got up, he did the Nazi salute after the mayor had asked for someone to leave and asked for the police to intervene. The silent defiance salute that led to 9 years of legal battles between Robert Norse and the city of Santa Cruz made a return to the council's chambers.
Asked the police to try to figure out who it was that yelled out.
It was sparked by the mayor asking police to get involved after a man in the gallery yelled out.
We do have a city park that is genuinely being damaged.
That's when Norse walked to the front of the chambers and raised his arm.
What I did there was mock Nazi salute, which really means you're acting like a bunch of fascists. Don't act that way.
Norse says the city council is repressing First Amendment rights by limiting how long protesters can camp out at a public park and by threatening arrests when people speak out at meetings. Vice Mayor Don Lane says he'll try to work with the Occupy group to extend its stay. Will you be willing to extend a permit past November 16th?
I'd be willing to advocate for that if we found that there was really good life.
That compliance would require campers to clean up their trash and to no longer use their campsite as a bathroom. Norse doesn't buy it and says the Nazi salute is his way of showing how he feels, even though it's often seen as a highly offensive gesture.
I think it's visually dramatic, and I think it may offend some people, but I think it may also be understandable to others.
Norse says he was falsely arrested the first time around and will continue to use the Nazi salute at council meetings whenever he believes people are being repressed. And another way that Norse feels like he's being repressed is by the time limit that's been set up for how long people can talk during these council meetings. You're only allowed 2 minutes, and if you go over that, they'll actually turn the microphone off on you. Dan?
All right, thank you very much, Tom. Occupy Santa Cruz protesters are joining up with UC
Okay.
Santa Cruz students tomorrow.
So probably you've experienced something similar to that with people who are concerned and vocal about their needs and their view of things. And we just have to cut a wide swath. People have First Amendment rights. They do have a right to speak to the board. And as long as they're not threatening or disrupting and they follow your time limits and such things, generally speaking, they need to be heard. Closed session is a special part of the agenda. And in closed session, there can be no discussion except for the items that are described on the closed session agenda. And fortunately, the legislature has provided some, they call safe harbor provisions. And those safe harbor provisions are descriptions, and they're in the California Government Code, and they are for appointments, personnel appointments, litigation, anticipated litigation, licenses. Here's a kind of a comprehensive list. If somebody's got a license and they have some sort of a criminal record and they're going to be denied the license, then there's a way to go into closed session and consider it without, letting the public know that the person has some criminal background of some kind. Conference with real property negotiators. Cheryl's going to talk about that soon, so I'm going to skip over that. There's a conference with legal counsel or for existing and anticipated litigation, very detailed provisions about when you can use that. If the litigation is going forward, you have to identify the case so that the public can know whether they wish to speak to it. They differentiate about the basis. If you're going to talk about a case, you lay out whether you have to have a standard, it has to be usually something in writing, it has to barely threaten the litigation. There's a liability claims exception, hopefully trying to settle cases before they get to litigation. You have a right to plan in closed session for response to attack. So that's usually when the police or your security people come in and they show you how to find an emergency exit in those situations where things go bad. When there's a threat to public service of facilities, there's a bunch of them on the public sector employment. There's one for the appointment, there's one for the employment, there's one for the performance evaluation, and there's one for discipline. All of them have special rules, and you usually, not always, but you usually have to identify the person or the position that you're talking about. Conference with labor negotiators, you have to identify the negotiators and the bargaining unit. You can do one with case review and planning. There's some trade secret ones that probably will come up in your context. Certain federal law requirements, conference involving a joint powers agency, and an audit by the state auditor's office. So there's a lot of stuff there. It's all very detailed in the California Government Code and the Brown Act. And I always go back because they keep tweaking it every year and refining it. They refined it this year, last year, I guess it was, for COVID-19. And everybody has an interest in the Brown Act, so it becomes a somewhat convoluted language sometimes. Next slide, Cheryl. So on closed sessions, you've got to describe the item on the agenda. You've got to give the public the opportunity to speak on each item that's going to be on the closed session. And during the closed session, you can only speak on the commission, the board, agency can only speak on matters that are actually on the agenda. Sometimes that's hard because you're often in closed session in a kind of a more casual atmosphere. And there's a natural human tendency to kind of sometimes be more philosophical than you might be in open session, but you can't let that happen. You got to be talking about what's on the agenda and not go beyond that. And then after the closed session is completed, you must reconvene in open session, and there needs to be a report of any final action taken in closed session. I had a discussion with the Santa Cruz County Council Friday morning about reporting out a closed session on an unrelated matter. And he was saying that he typically does not report no action out of closed session. It's always been my practice. If there's no action to report, there's no action. That way, everybody knows that if I didn't say something, it's because I forgot. Either there was action and I report it, or there was no action and I reported that. But if I don't say anything, it could have been that I slipped up. So both of them are perfectly legitimate ways to handle it, but I always prefer the reporting out no action, no final action taken. Just because you have negotiations or you give direction to council doesn't necessarily mean it's closed, it's a final action. You don't have to tell everything you're doing at every point. For example, giving direction to a labor negotiator or a contract negotiator or your counsel litigation. You don't have to report without the interim steps, just the final action. Next slide, Cheryl. So an example, and I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl at this point and let her roll here.
So one of these closed sessions permitted examples is a conference with real property negotiators. So before the closed session, you have to place on the agenda the parties, the negotiators, and identify the real property every real property that's going to be discussed, and indicate whether the authority that's going to be given to the negotiator has to do with price or terms of payment or both. And you have to allow the public, if there's anyone who wants to speak to a closed session item, you need to let them do that. This is a link to a document that is very helpful that you may want to take a look at. It summarizes the different closed session items here and what needs to be on the agenda, what can be discussed here. This is just for your reference. And the second page of this document talks about what needs to go in the minutes afterwards. So we've included a link to that in here. Let me get back on track here. Sorry. Okay. Then this is an example of an agenda item for a real property negotiation item. You have to list it. You should title it Conference with Real Property Negotiators. List the identity of the property by street address if possible. If not, you can use an APN if it doesn't have a street address. Identify the who will be negotiating on behalf of the agency, and that can be somebody, a board member. Identify the negotiating parties. So in this case, you know, it could be the housing authority and then whatever development company you're going to be doing negotiations with, and then specifying whether you're going to be negotiating price or terms or both. Within the session, the only matters that can be discussed are matters relating to the granting of authority to the negotiators regarding the price or payment terms. And it has to involve the purchase, sale, exchange, or lease of the real property, nothing else. You can't talk about other factors about the real estate. You're limited to just these topics in closed session. And then after the session, you would have to reconvene in open session and report any final action, if any, was taken in the closed section. If the action taken was approval of an agreement actually concluding negotiations concerning a particular property, if approval in closed session finalizes the agreement, then you need to report that the agreement was approved in the open session of the same public meeting that the closed session was taken in. If the board's approval of an agreement doesn't finalize the agreement and requires the other party's approval, then if someone inquires about that, then you have to disclose that you're waiting on approval from the other party and the substance of the agreement when you get the approval that you're waiting for. That makes sense. Okay. Couple of things, you know, these are examples of things that can kind of go wrong when you go astray in these closed sessions. In a recent case, Fowler versus City of Lafayette, it was found that the City Council violated the Brown Act by failing to disclose and make available a record that the person who was applying for an approval their attorney had threatened litigation if the City Council didn't approve their building plans. And that was enough to constitute a violation because they that was material information that the public should have known because it would have possibly affected the approval process. Shapiro versus San Diego is one that a lot of people have already heard about. It has to do with the San Diego Padres stadium building. And in this case, the council messed up by being too general about the properties that they wanted to be having closed session discussions about. They basically said, we're going to be discussing possible purchase of properties in the East Village area of downtown. And they thought that that was close enough to identifying the properties, and it was not. There's also an Attorney General opinion that has, and it's not binding opinion, but the courts do look to the Attorney General opinions as persuasive authority. And in this opinion, they were asked, what basically can be discussed in these real property negotiation closed sessions. And they said, you're limited to the amount of payment that the agency is willing to pay or accept, depending on what side of the bargain you're on. The form, manner, and timing of such payment, and items that are essential to arriving at those terms. And that's it. You can't talk about other things. It has to be limited to just these essential items. Do you want to talk about AB 361? Alan?
No, I'm good. I think the board, I think, understands what that is. You've got this month-to-month emergency declaration requirement, with the board having to find a state of emergency every 30 days, as long as you continue to do remote meetings.
And that concludes our training session. We'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Great, thank you so much for the detailed and informative presentation. I know that I don't think anybody here on the board has passed the bar, and there's just so much to know and so many pitfalls that one can fall into. Are there any questions from board members?
What are your phone numbers? Only joking. I know the phone number to Grensky.
All right.
Okay, well, I don't see any phone numbers, but I'm sure that we can work with Ms. Tubbs to follow up with you if we have any questions. There was a lot of information, so I'm not surprised that folks aren't brimming with questions as I try to digest all of the information. Okay. Any follow-up from you, Ms. Surgeon?
I think we're good. I think this PowerPoint presentation was forwarded to each board member, so it will be in your email.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith and Ms. Ferguson. It was really helpful, and hopefully we don't have any questions, but you might hear from us.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your patience on behalf of the firm, and Cheryl and I, we appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. And obviously, if you have questions, you can contact either Cheryl or myself.
Great, thanks. Have a good rest of the evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we'll move now to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is typically routine and therefore designed for quicker action than business items. The consent agenda this evening consists of approving the minutes of the annual board meeting on September 27th, 2021. Anything from staff to report about the consent agenda? Is anybody on the board, would they like to poll item A, the approval of the minutes from the September 27th, 2021 board meeting? Hearing no one, I'll ask if anyone in the public. There's a motion to approve and a second by motion by Commissioner Gama and a second by Commissioner Healy. We'll go out to the public. Would anybody in the public like to poll item A, the approval of the minutes? Ms. Tubbs, anybody?
I don't have anybody on the phone.
Very good.
I don't have anybody.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on the motion in the second? I see no one in the chat, and Ms. Tubbs, still nobody on the line?
Nobody on the line.
Great. Let's bring it back. Public comments closed. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Chair Wizard.
Aye.
Vice Chair Buter.
Yes.
Commissioner Healy.
Yes.
Commissioner Ballesteros.
Yes.
Commissioner Gama,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
and Commissioner Goodwin.
Yes.
Okay, unanimous pass.
Great, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is reports of committees, and we'll just go right down the list to the Personnel Committee. Commissioner Ballesteros, anything to report?
Everything is on the agenda under new business.
Very good. Thank you for your brief report.
Thank you.
Next is Finance and Development Committee, Commissioner Gama.
Oh, we did not meet this month. We did not have any new business.
Very good. Thank you for your report. Monterey County Housing Incorporated, Commissioners Ballesteros and Miller, anything to report?
I don't know if Mr. Rose is on or not, John.
We haven't had a meeting since the last board meeting, so I think there's one scheduled in November.
Very good.
Thank you.
And again, affordable acquisitions. Should we park that one as well, or is there news there?
It's connected with the Michi.
Okay, nothing to report. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the brief reports from our committee chairs. That was well done. Next, we'll go to the report of the secretary, Ms. Sturgeon.
Okay, so the secretary report is attached. I just have a couple of highlights to go over. The HACM website is currently being redesigned, and we're going to be launching that. Looks like the first week in November. So we're going to go ahead and launch it, but we will still be making any adjustments to it, but we're just working on the graphics and information there. For the commissioners, I have purchased these NARO handbook for commissioners, and these will be sent out to you later this week. It is just a very good reference material. It goes over just different things that commissioners should be working on, and it also has glossary of terminology. So lots of the terms and projects that we're currently working on. So that's going to go out to each person. We are still recruiting for Director of Property Management. So that we're hoping in the next 2 weeks to have a couple of applicants for that. And swinging back to HACM did receive the official notice of termination for property management services for Michi and Michi AA. So we are looking at roughly about $300,000 impact on the agency via expenses that we will need to absorb and revenue that will be lost. So that is going to be effective February 1st. So they are putting out an RFP, and the agency is welcome to present and apply in that RFP process. We've had initial conversations with the Housing Authority of Santa Cruz. They have a migrant center, the Buena Vista Migrant Center, that they are interested in transitioning to our agency. Jose Acosta and I will be visiting the site and having further discussions with the Housing Authority to make sure that this is something that we would have the bandwidth to take over. There are some special circumstances out on that site, so we just want to make sure we fully understand the property before we would agree to take that over. The interim executive director and the director of housing programs, which is Ms. Madera, we are going to be working on some ideas for recruitments for landlords. So, you know, in our community, basically, we are running very tight on landlords. You know, families get their vouchers, they go out quote unquote shopping, looking for units, and they're just really having a hard time finding available units. So we are going to be looking for some kind of incentive program and more community relations to try to get more landlords involved in our housing choice voucher program. The RAD 10 and AR project continues. You get weekly updates on that. And then just the individual chart, I wanted to acknowledge the employees that are, you know, moving forward with their specific education programs towards what we do. So we have individuals that have taken eligibility specialist trainings, tax credit trainings. So these courses are usually 3 days and require a 3 to 4 hour exam to get certification. So we always want to make sure that we acknowledge our employees as they are, you know, sharpening their skills for the Housing Authority. And that is it for the executive report.
Very good. Any questions from commissioners or comments about that executive report? Vice Chair Booter, I see your hand.
Yeah, Darlene, I had a question about, you know, is there any data? I guess what data are you basing that on? Is it sort of a general kind of sense that you hear back from the folks who are out looking, or you know, are there any numbers we can sort of apply to that?
Well, basically, we haven't quantified it yet. It's more qualitative right now because we're just getting feedback from families that they're struggling. We're looking at the timing and how long it takes to place vouchers. So really circling in on, you know, what's available, we can kind of move it to more of a number based. But right now it's just feedback we're getting from families, and the statistics, we can see how long it's taking families to lease up. You know, asking, and you know, with COVID, they've been able to ask for waivers for extended amount of time to find a place to live, but that's going to be coming to an end. So we really want to make sure that we get some new landlords in place, and, you know, and it doesn't hurt to have better community relations and, you know, get landlords to see the positive part of being a partner with the housing authority. But we can move to get some, you know, numbers on that. But right now,
yeah, I think so. I had two kind of additional comments. One is, and this may be embedded in your plan, but you know, listening to the landlords on the pain points that they may be having. You hear a variety of things in terms of, I'm not saying with this housing authority in particular, but the wrap on the program with landlords tends to be late payment or the complications with the HQS inspection. And so just really trying to put yourself in their shoes, I think, could be helpful for us, potentially as helpful as thinking about the incentives. And the only other thing that I think we need to give some thought to is, you know, I think this is an issue where there's a carrot and a stick, and we can potentially offer the carrot in terms of incentives, but you know, there is landlord discrimination out there against folks with vouchers. Obviously, it's outlawed in California. There's no source of income discrimination allowed. And so I think we should try to think about, we may already know, but we probably want to identify some advocates, particularly folks who have a legal arm, who could help us in that regard to sort of apply some of the stick here. Because, you know, those protections exist, but if nobody's out there enforcing them, then you know, it has no value. So
yeah, exactly. And then also, you know, considering a more robust education program, because maybe there are people out there that don't even know about our programs. So it's both sides. It's the people that do know and maybe are not that excited to be part of it, and then people that don't know. But it's very valid, you know, finding out what are the obstacles from the landlord's point of view. Okay, awesome. Made note of that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Booter. Commissioner Ballesteros.
Sorry, my apologies. My son-in-law's making dinner, so you probably heard some background. I just wanted to ask a question in regards to the 300,000, because Michi did notify HACM of the that they were gonna pull the property, or you know, discontinue the property management. And so, Darlene, what do you think is the forecast? What are concerns? Should HACM prepare in case they don't? Because I mean, anybody could easily say without no prejudice, but for human, they're gonna still hold something that over our heads. So
I think at this point, you know, we have to look at again, we'll have to look at what does it look like, you know, the untangling of everything, and actually what responsibilities will the housing authority still have, because they still are a component unit. Michi is still a component unit of the housing authority. So what relationship will be left? Because there will be associations, there still will be interactions because of that relationship. But right now, you know, we're not hiring. We've kind of put a temporary hold on any filling of positions in maintenance and property management. So until we look at, you know, re-strategizing the layouts, or what do we need to do, because you can't just take somebody from one property and put them to another. We have to look at budgets. We have to look at considerations with regards to that. But right now we are not hiring in those two departments. So that's the first step of what we're going to do. And then we need to back into what expenses can we fully absorb, what expenses can be reallocated to new programs? So that's something that we're walking through right now. And so hopefully we'd have those numbers, end of November, early December, so that we can have a plan of action. But right now we are not hiring any vacant positions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Ballesteros and Ms. Sturgeon. Last call for questions or comments for the Secretary. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to new business. Item A, Resolution 3031, approval of the 2021-2022 success rate payment standard set at the 50th percentile.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. I just wanted to bring this to the board for us to get approval on our new payment standards. Had published the new fair market rents, but the Housing Authority has been approved at the 50 percentile back in April of 2018. We continue to use those 50 percentile, and HUD still recommends us to use the higher fair market rents. As you could see, I had staff, and we also used all the HUD calculation tools for us to come up with the new payment standards. And we did base it on by zip codes. I know Commissioner Bruder was wanting us to work on something like this. As you could see on the attached memorandum, it has our HUD approval success rate. Those are the FMRs at a 50 percentile. Every other housing authority, they are set at the 40 percentile, but because of our waiver, we're at a higher FMRs. So I did have staff. We also use the Go Section A because that is one of the requirements that we would need to utilize. And so we had to do a lot of rent comparables. So we did base it by different zip codes, and also the staff, they're the ones that actually work with landlords and they know the area. So we did come up with different payment standards. As you could see, for the Salinas area, it has all the zip codes there. And then we have the ones from Salinas, Spreckles, Moss Landing, and then we have the ones from South County, some of the peninsula, and then the last one, which is Aromas and Watsonville, that is the higher payments because the county line, they're close to Santa Cruz. So it's a little higher on that, but pretty much my staff works very, very hard to work with the landlords. And so these are the payment standards that we would like for the board to approve, because going forward, we need to start sending out notifications to our clients and to the landlords. So we could do the annual certifications and also the new movements, because it affects our 50058 submissions. So we would like for the board to approve these new payment standards starting. The annuals will be in effective November 1st. The annual recertifications will be effective January 1st of 2022. Unless the board has any questions.
Any questions from board members?
I mostly just had a comment. I mean, obviously we're going to vote on it. I'm going to vote no on this one just because I feel like, sort of as a matter of principle, giving folks some more options. I don't think that the $50, there's basically two payment standards here if you sort of scrutinize this chart. There's the first 3 rows are one set of payment standards, and then the bottom 2 rows are the others. So yes, we've attached zip codes to it, but HUD publishes zip code based payment standards for every zip code in the county. And so I feel like taking the 50th percentile for that zip code, or if you wanted to break this, with some more granularity, but I don't think that the $50 is really gonna make the difference. And I also wonder, as we start to talk to more, well, you're obviously talking to tenants all the time, but in talking to tenants, I would be curious to, the extent to which there are issues with just finding a unit that where the market rent is within the payment standard. And I'm sure that's more pronounced in certain parts of the county. So those are just my comments.
Just to let you know, Commissioner Buda, we did pull the information from HUD, the zip codes. So we did compare the zip codes based on with the zip codes that they use. They're at the 40 percentile. We're using the higher of the 50 percentile. And so
Yeah, but you're using the FMRs, not the small area FMRs.
no, we're not considered as a small area. Correct.
Well, every housing authority has the option to opt into the zip code based payment standards. This is just these are regular FMRs. That's my point.
Oh.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Butter. Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, seeing none, we'll go out to the public for comment. I don't see any speakers with their hands raised in the participant list. Ms. Tebbs, anybody on the line?
I don't have anybody on the phone.
Okay, we'll leave it open just for a minute in case somebody pops in desperate to talk about this item. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and come back to the board. Any final thoughts, questions, concerns before we hear a motion? Seeing none, ready when you are, commissioners.
I make a motion to approve the resolution 3031.
I'll second that motion.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Ballesteros and seconded by Commissioner Healy to adopt Resolution 3031, approval of the 2021-2022 success rate payment standard set at the 50th percentile.
Okay.
No discussion on the motion. We'll go to the roll call vote. Ms. Sturgeon?
Okay, roll call. Chair Wizard?
Aye.
Vice Chair Buter?
No.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes.
Commissioner Ballesteros?
Yes.
Commissioner Gama?
Yes.
And Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
And Commissioner Goodwin?
Yes.
Okay, majority vote pass.
Thank you, everyone. Moving to item B, Resolution 3032, appointment of the interim executive director.
All right. So we have the resolution in front of you, and I don't know what other comments you would like to have, if anybody has any questions or comments with regards to this resolution.
Ms. Sturgeon, it's my understanding that through the course of the past several months, we have not had the full complement of the executive team participating in the daily activities of the authority, and it was our understanding when this board last met that there is a current gap in management with the absence of the current executive director, and I think that was the board's intent, was to fill that gap on a temporary basis until such time as he returned. Is that the understanding of the staff and the current executive team?
That is the understanding of the staff, yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Just if I can make a comment, sir. I think that this is, the right direction to take us, so we can keep some continuity within the organization right now until we get over this this kind of lull that we're having based on things. So that's my comments.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Miller, or Commissioner Miller. I appreciate it. Any other commissioner comments or questions? And seeing none, we'll go to public comment. I see, Mr. Donato, you have your hand raised, so we'll go to you for your public comment. And just please be aware that we typically limit comments to 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Wizard, or Chairperson Wizard. Yeah, I think the agency is going through a struggle, and the staff are stepping up, and I just hope that the agency appreciates the staff stepping up to be there for the people of our community who we serve. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Donato. Is there any other public comment, both Zoom or on the phone? Ms. Tebbs, I take it nobody on the line?
No, I don't have anybody calling in at all.
Okay, great. And I don't see anybody in the participants list with their hands up. So we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments for Ms. Sturgeon? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Who was that on the second?
Francine, good one.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get the yellow box. I wasn't sure who was.
You know what? Oh,
Oh, there it goes.
Sorry.
No, all good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was properly moved by Commissioner Miller and seconded by Commissioner Goodwin to approve Resolution 3032, appointing Ms. Sturgeon as the interim executive director. Roll call vote, please.
Hey, Chair Wizard.
Aye.
Okay, Vice Chair Buter.
Yes.
Commissioner Healy.
Yes.
Commissioner Ballesteros.
Yes.
Commissioner Gama.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
And Commissioner Goodwin.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, unanimous pass.
Thank you very much. Moving to item C, Resolution 3033, the Assembly Bill 361 discussion regarding the November meeting. Is this Ms. Tebbs or Sturgeon on the staff report?
It's Miss Sturgeon.
Oh, it is?
Oh, I'm just assuming because it's AB 361.
I'm
That's
not
something that
aware
we
of-
have, that's something that we have to do each month is my understanding, John. So I think it's open to the board, isn't it?
Sure, I'll just, for the benefit of the public, whoever may be watching, I'll just read the resolution. It's a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the County of Monterey, proclaiming a local emergency persists, re-ratifying the proclamation of a state of emergency by Governor Newsom's order of September 17th, 2021, and reauthorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of the Housing Authority of the County of Monterey for the period October 25th, 2021 to November 24th, 2021, pursuant to Brown Act provisions. To summarize that, so people who didn't have the benefit of Brown Act training or a law degree, we can say that this resolution would allow the Board of Commissioners of HAPM to meet remotely, as we are now, through November 24th, at which time we would then reconsider adding another month on to the end. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, we'll go out to public comment. Anyone in the public wishing to make a comment on Resolution 3033, Agenda Item C, 8C. I see Adriana, your hand is up. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yes, and I may have missed this part, but I would just like to comment that if the board can consider continuing doing the board meetings through Zoom as well, so individuals such as myself that are not able to physically make it into the office to attend the meeting can attend while not actually having to be there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment related to item 8C, Resolution 3033? I'll take the absence of a notification from Ms. Tebbs that there's still nobody on the line, and I see nobody in the participant list with their hands up. So we will close public comment, and I want to say to Adriana that your comment was well heard and well timed. This is the right time to make it, and we will soon vote on doing the thing you just asked us to do. So is there a motion to approve or reject the resolution number 3033, item 8C.
I make a
So
motion
moved.
to
I have
approve.
a motion from Commissioner Ballesteros. Commissioner Miller, was that a second?
No, that was Kevin, I believe.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes, that's
Commissioner
correct.
Healy.
I'll go ahead and second that motion of Commissioner Ballesteros, Chair Wizard.
Thank you so much. Properly moved by Commissioner Ballesteros, seconded by Commissioner Healy. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Wizard,
Aye.
Vice Chair Buter,
Yes.
Commissioner Healy,
Yes.
Commissioner Ballesteros,
Yes.
Commissioner Gama,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
and Commissioner Goodwin.
Francine,
She's muted. Give her a minute.
okay.
Francine, you're muted. Okay.
That could be kind of tricky to get back and forth on
Yes.
a mobile device. So we'll just give it a second longer.
Mhm.
I can't
Okay.
get to her.
Okay.
Oh, there she
There
goes.
she is. There she
Yes.
is. Okay, unanimous
Yes.
pass.
Thank you, Commissioner Goodwin.
Thank
So we've concluded item 8C. We have also, from the very beginning of this meeting, item 8D, which is not written into the agenda packet, but was discussed at the beginning of this meeting on a unanimous passing of late addition to the agenda, a discussion with a vote about replacing me, Commissioner John Wizard, from the Finance.
Oh, John,
and Development
excuse me.
Committee.
John, excuse me. We have a added agenda item on the Hackham Financial Situations discussion.
Oh, I
as
must be looking at the old agenda. I'm so
8D.
sorry.
And
Thank you for
then
stopping me.
we did add a new agenda item. We're going to add it verbally, which are, I think we already did appointments. I think we
Yeah,
already
that'll
did
be
that.
8E. I went a little out
That'd
of
be
order. Thank you
8E.
very much. Yeah, so
You're welcome.
8D, as in David, is
Hackham
the
Financial.
discussion, yes, the discussion about the Hackham financials. I wanted to create an opportunity for us to have a conversation about the report we heard last meeting about HDC's concern about payments related to Tynan Village. So we won't discuss anything that might be more correct in closed session, but I wanted to kind of take the Board of Commissioners, kind of take their pulse on some instructions to give to Ms. Sturgeon related to that notification from HDC. So I'd heard from Commissioner Booter, I'll put you on the spot. We had some concern about how we would go about that to be responsive, to be a good partner agency. And I was wondering if you could just spend a minute talking to the board about some of the things that you surfaced.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we know the situation in terms of the developer fee that wasn't passed along to HDC, and trying to think about, what the status is on that.
Thank you. So one of the things I was concerned about was we'd heard from Ms. Sturgeon maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago now that we were switching bank accounts and we needed to we didn't have a ton of cash on hand, that we were financially we were fine, business is fine, but that if there was a large drawdown on our accounts, that could put us in a tight spot. And so when I heard the report from HDC that there was a developer fee that had yet to be paid, I thought maybe we should have a conversation about how we go about tackling this problem. That's where I was coming from. I don't know if anybody else on the commission has any thoughts about those circumstances. And I'll open the conversation to questions and comments. Okay, I
mean, nothing
don't
other
s-
than just like the cash situation, you know, so having an understanding of exactly how much unrestricted cash we have on hand relative to, I think, the magnitude of this one, you know, if I'm not speaking out of turn, it was like 2.3 million. And so I think that's the concern, is making sure that we have conveyed to the board a clear understanding of how much cash we have sitting around that we can use for these types of situations. There are contingencies that occur, you know, litigation with employees, and, you know, obviously some of those settlements come from insurance and whatnot, but you know, I think anytime that you have a situation where there's a potential liability out there that you've been made aware of that's multiples in excess of the amount of cash you have on hand, you know, that's concerning.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Buder. Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, sir. I think where I'm coming from is an understanding of what occurred with that fund and where the money went. And to have a basic understanding, is that something that we have to somehow figure out how to repay over, so that everything's in the clear with the equity partners and all the partners involved. So, I mean, maybe if we could get some sort of report here, I think probably sooner than later, that we have the ability to kind of understand that, so all of us can make a really informed decision on what's the best way to respond to that and get that corrected. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. I think that is certainly my concern, and I'm, you know, part of having this discussion was, what is the direction from the board on how do we achieve that? You know, what is it that we can do to make sure that we don't get a demand letter or a lien of some sort? You know, how do we stay ahead of this and be responsible about it? So a final call for comments from the board before we go out to public comment.
Well, John, I guess the other question I had was, I'm always concerned that as a commissioner, we see sort of the very tip of the iceberg. And so the things that are brought to our attention, the things that are brought to our attention by, you know, folks at a partner agency, right? And so just given the revolving door of personalities here in the finance director role and the executive director role, and some of the things I've seen, you know, I do wonder at some point if, you know, if an audit might make sense for us to, you know, to Paul's point, I mean, just as our fiduciary responsibility, where did that money go, right? I mean, that's an important question. And I don't know that I have a great answer to that at the moment. And I think that there's potentially some other items like that. Obviously, some of these other items that we've all been made aware of in the past, you know, prior to Darlene coming on board. I wonder if it might be in our best interest to bring in somebody like a Ron Herlab and just, you know, sunshine is the best disinfectant. Say, hey, what is our situation? It's better to know it than to come, you know, 3 or 4 months or 6 months or 8 months down the road, and then all of a sudden somebody says, hey, you owe me $2.3 million, and we really owe hard cash and we don't have it. You know, that really scares me.
Thank you, Commissioner Buder, Vice Chair Buder. Let's go out to public comment. I saw Mr. Donato's hand go up for a second and then back down. I just want to make sure that you meant to put your hand down. If you'd like to speak,
Yes,
the floor is
I meant
yours.
to down. Thank you,
Okay.
Chair Wizard.
All good. Thank you very much. I appreciate your participation this evening. Is there any other public comment, either on the line or on Zoom? Please put your hand up if you're ready to speak. Okay, seeing none and hearing nothing from Ms. Tebbs about callers, we will go back to the board. Public comment is closed. I heard some good discussion. I want to make sure that others have the opportunity to weigh in. This is not agendized for an affirmative vote one way or the other, but I think that the board can give some direction to Ms. Sturgeon about where we're headed, what kind of things we're interested in, before formalizing it with any kind of like RFP or contract or anything like that. That would certainly be a agendized item for action. So is there some consensus around the idea of taking a microscope's the wrong word, magnifying glasses, what I'm after, to our books and really digging in to make sure that everything is where we think it is and nothing's missing?
You know, I personally think I agree with both yourself and Commissioner Buter that I'd rather know than get hit with this thing a couple months from now or 6 months from now or next week or anything else. And I know it'll take longer next week, but I think it's important that we somehow, I don't know if it's able to wait another month. Sounds to me like we've waited some significant time already, that maybe we agendize it in a way that we can actually discuss it and give whatever proper direction we have to give to make sure that stuff gets done, and that we try to get an answer for what happened there, and make whatever or take whatever action we have to prevent us from getting demand letters or having equity partners come in or anything else. That's just kind of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Any other comments or questions from board members?
Chair Wizard, I just want to, I'm just trying to put my thought pattern into order. So I don't know. I think first that every commissioner should be given all the information, all the facts, black and white. If HDC knew, how far back did they know about this? About this money not being credited to them? Was it way before Ms. Sturgeon was here? Was it back the previous executive director or the one before him? I think you need to get the facts. You need to get all the, all the information, because I think we just need to know. And you're right, there needs to be a magnifying glass. Working with finance, you're able to find it. You can detect it. And, we have to be transparent. And I'm pretty sure that Ms. Sturgeon will be, and might not even be under when she was, how far back does it go? And there's a lot of things that some of us commissioners that were here, we probably were not enlightened of this information. So I say present the facts, put it in black and white so we could see. And then if you have to consult a third party, so that way you have transparency to the community, then that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ballesteros. Your comments are well received. It's my intention not to pursue this more proper accounting in order to point a finger, so much as just to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to as the people representing this board and this agency. And I'm a Hackham baby. I've only been here for 18 months. So, it's not for me to say so-and-so did this or did that. But if I'm now responsible for ensuring that from the day I arrived forward, we're doing the right thing, well, I need to take a look backward to make sure that I'm on sound footing. So I totally appreciate what you're saying and agree with you. Ms. Sturgeon, I still want to make sure that we have room for the other commissioners to comment, but Ms. Sturgeon, do you think it would be possible to, I don't know what it would cost. I don't know if we need to go out for an RFP. I don't know if we could work with legal counsel to identify sort of the rationale on a sole source contract to do this very specific work. But are those things that you could put into motion so that we can vote at the next meeting?
Absolutely.
And hit the ground running, as opposed to vote to authorize you to do it at the next meeting and then still need a whole nother month to come back to say, yeah, go ahead with that.
Yes. So what we can do, basically, as long as we stay within our procurement policies, we can start reaching out if, and get some initial cost basis, find qualified individuals to do the review. And then if it exceeds the threshold, then we would have to put it into a formal RFP. But I do believe that it would probably come in under. So I can start putting together some ideas of what we want to get done, and we can look at some companies to get that work done for us.
Okay, yeah, it would be, I think, to Commissioner Miller's comments, I think it would be advantageous in order to be able to say, give you the thumbs up or to push pause at the next meeting and not make this a multi-meeting process.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, great. And the last call for other comments or questions from board members. And this is again,
Can I just clarify
and direction to staff, no formal decision at this point. Commissioner Booter.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify, if we're asking Darlene to come up with something that's actionable by the next meeting, I just want to make sure that as a board, we're clear on the scope of what we're looking for. And maybe I may have missed that in the conversation, but I just want to, I don't know if has that been surfaced adequately here to, maybe, would we be talking about an investigation narrowly on this topic of this particular transaction? Are we talking about something that is a broader inquiry to try to find hidden challenges that may be lurking out there, other icebergs? So that's I guess one question. Chair Wizard, what's sort of in your mind on that when you give that instruction to Darlene?
Well, thank you for that comment, Vice Chair Booter. For me as an individual, if I call, I'll just use an analogy because this is pretty technical stuff, and I appreciate it. If it's finance isn't your background, maybe it's not as approachable. So if I call a plumber over because my sink is clogged and they clean out the sink and go, hey, I've noticed that the water's moving pretty slow in your line. I think you might have another clog somewhere. I'm not going to say, thanks so much, get out. I'm going to say, well, shoot, can you fix that? I don't want to have to have my house flood. I don't want to have to find a new problem just to call you back out and be in dire straits. If you're already here, you might as well fix it. That's sort of my general approach. So I would be willing to support sort of a more holistic approach from whomever it is we get to help us, because I don't want to have them, unclog the sink and then a month or two goes by and we go, well, shoot, we should have cleaned out the lateral too. So I don't know what other commissioners think about that. Do we want to keep it, hyper focused and narrow to just this HDC issue, or do we want to take a step back and make sure that there isn't another iceberg out there? Commissioner Miller.
Well, I agree with you. If there's other, as Hans put it, icebergs out there, I'd like to know what those other icebergs could be. My only concern about the Titan Village one is I believe that it's come to us before. So I think it's something that we really got to make a decision on and decide what we're going to do with it before we end up getting a demand letter that really limits our time, our ability to make a decision or anything else, because now we're under a gun and under a calendar. So while I would love to make sure that we do everything else, maybe we could give the direction of, we need answers on this Titan Village, find out what happened with it and why it happened and who authorized it to happen and what are our options to deal with it. And then if there's other stuff out there that they become aware of as they're doing this, that we should be made aware of, have that information also come back to us. I don't know if that's possible to do under the direction, but I think for sure we have to make a decision on Titan Village here, because like I said, my fear is a demand letter or something else coming at us and limiting our ability to look at it or even have time to properly look at it and get through it. So I would rather that be able to start sooner than later. And if expanding it to more things than just one drags that out longer and puts us in, then maybe we do it in two different bouts, one of dealing with the Titan Village issue and the other with looking for other, issues, icebergs, or whatever we want to call them that's there.
So I would think that, so from what I'm hearing, it would sound like do an initial engagement for the Tynan Village issue, that they would be reviewing it, do an analysis, and then look for systematic flaws in what happened, isolating what happened, finding a systematic solution for that. And then if there's any recommendations that come out of that engagement, to potentially do another engagement. That's kind of what
you put it so much more eloquently than I did, Darlene, as to what it, but
it's just because I read a lot of corrective action plans.
So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it with that. I'm just, I just personally have a concern with this item being in front of us for as long as it's been in front of us, and we haven't done anything yet. And I think that we need to as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Any other comments or questions? I see Commissioner Booter's unmuted, but I just want to see if we have anything from Commissioner Gama, Commissioner Goodwin, or Commissioner Healy before we go back to Commissioner Booter.
Hi, this is Viviana. I don't have anything to add. I agree with what's been said by every commissioner.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gama.
I would simply add that probably a narrowed scope. I like the systematic approach that Darlene has suggested, as opposed to unraveling and having a larger element to deal with. I think taking the elephant one bite at a time would be my suggestion. I think that's a good approach.
Thank you, Commissioner Healy. Commissioner Booter, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess my only question was differentiating between what happened versus sort of what we do about it. So Paul, when I think about HDC, I feel like what they want from us is the what we do about it piece, right? And remind me, can somebody please remind me where we landed on that? I thought that we were, or there was a proposal at some point from HDC for HACM to basically cover this in a way that wouldn't have a cash effect. It was sort of through, through a soft second loan or something that got paid that would never eventually get paid out, and it wasn't going to have a real meaningful cash impact. At least that's how it was presented to us. Did we land on anything on that, or is that what she's looking for?
I think that's kind of what we're looking at. We're looking at examining those two options, because there was a cash option and a non-cash option. So, but understanding the transaction, really diving into the transaction to see if those are even the appropriate resolutions. Because yes, there was a cash and a non-cash.
Have we done any independent investigating to see what our internal sense is at this point?
Yeah, we have looked through a lot of the transactions, and we're still looking at various sides to it, because you can look at one side, but you've got to look at all sides of the transaction. So what hit what set of books, what hit the other set of books? Was there what was the offset? What was it allocated to? Why was it allocated to that? So finding more supporting documentation to go with that, and actually looking to see, did it go to the right property? Was it moved? Are there other transactions that should have fed into it? So that's where it gets kind of complicated, and it gets a little bit more time consuming, because it's not like I can just pull up one transaction, look at it, and we're done. There's multiple transactions that feed into that property that could be an offset or have something to do and have an association with that transaction. And I think that's what, if we're keeping a narrow scope, having someone look at it, we start with this transaction, they're able to unwind that, and then they can see any other transaction that feeds into it. So having that narrow scope, I think is a good idea. They can review these transactions, look at both sides. What's the HACM side? What's the HDC side? What should have been what? And then that way they can make a recommendation, especially if it was a systematic error. Was it a user error? Was it a systematic error? Or is it a misinterpretation of what should have happened? So
I'm hearing there's enough concerns that it's about the substance of it, that having someone go and look at it before we decide who we're going to pay or how we're going to pay it.
Yeah, and I think it would be good to have a third party look at it, so they can give the interpretation of, yes, there is a cash element or no, there is not a cash element to it. So, you know, deciphering those two things and making the best recommendation of how we move forward with it.
And so I don't know if Starla's on the call, and Paul, you may have a better
she's not
recollection of
available.
this.
Yeah, she's not.
Got it.
So there, Star wasn't available. She got felt ill this afternoon, had to go home. I guess
The question
the
I
one
had,
thing
Paul,
that I would
was like, just the one question I had before that on that was, what was the time pressure element in this? We have a number of HDC items that have time pressure in terms of getting out financials, and I just can't recall. Do you recall on this?
So my understanding was that we have something held up that an account will not sign off on, and I'm not going to pretend like I totally understand what that really was. So I don't want to give that until we have an answer on this issue. So I think that we got to, at least in my opinion, move on this thing and find out. I mean, it's a rather large transaction. I would think that somewhere in board packets and board meetings, there's got to be some information about it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can research that, and that will give us some understanding of what occurred and why it occurred.
Yeah.
Maybe that can speed it up for us. I don't know.
Yeah, this transaction does go back a few years. So if I remember correctly, it's a 2017 transaction.
I believe that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to look at what were agreements, what was agreed upon, what was not agreed upon. So pulling all that information together. And again, you know, I think having a third party look at the transaction from both sides can give us a little clearer insight. And then also, you know, obviously make recommendations if we didn't handle it the cleanest way, to giving us some insight into, you know, was there more gap accounting that we could have done? Did we do the proper gap accounting? You know, it's a little bit subjective. You know, we have to look at that were in place as well. So were there any understandings between the two agencies that would be impacted by this payout? So that's going to be a very a crucial part of it as well. So looking at agreements and things like that.
Yeah, I guess my only point is, like, based on, and Paul, thank you for jogging my memory on that. My recollection on this was we needed to move pretty quickly. And so that's the only thing I would flag here, is trying to have, we need a process that's going to do this expeditiously.
Yep.
I see it appears as though we've lost Commissioner Miller, just as you thanked him for jogging your memory. He was overwhelmed by your compliment and had to leave the meeting to celebrate.
Exactly. So I think I have an idea of you know the kind of direction that you want to take with this, and I do believe with staying within procurement, we would not have to do an RFP based upon what I think the cost would be. But I would need to reach out to, we would need to get 3 cost estimates, but we need to have a scope of work. So I will draw up a scope of work based on the conversation that we had here. And what would you want me to do with that scope of work? Would you want me to send it to the finance committee? Or how would we want to move forward with that?
I'd like to first summarize what the scope of work is, and then we can figure out where to direct it. This is what I'm hearing, and so I want to solicit other board members' questions, comments, and clarifications in case I've got it different. What I'm hearing is that we see the elephant, we want to take one bite at a time, but we understand that we got to get to the whole elephant. That being said, the bite we're going to take first is the Tynan Village bite, which is the most pressing with regard to timeline. Yes. So first thing we need to do is, but we also have to get to the rest of the elephant. So do Tynan Village first. That's what I understand. I also understand that if we can do the whole thing under the cap of the procurement limit, great. But because we want to get to the whole elephant, it may make sense to break it out and go, well, the first tranche, the first, hey, Sandy, I'm sorry, Ms. Hubsky, it looks like,
Sandy, can you let Can you met
Yeah,
Commissioner
that he
Miller
might be in
back
the
in?
waiting room. Thank you. And I'll just pause for a second so that I can.
Okay, I don't see anybody trying to come in. I don't see anywhere I need to admit anybody. I see Hans on. Who's out?
Miller.
Commissioner Miller.
Okay, and I don't see any place to oh, wait a moment. Let me see. No, I don't see any place where he's trying to come back in. Do you see him?
No, there was just a message in the chat that he was waiting, but if you don't see him in the waiting room, then
Wait, doesn't this,
I don't see him on the participant list waiting to get in.
Okay, I see something about Nora trying to come in, but I can't, there's no place for me to admit anybody.
okay, well, we can loop back. I mean, we're not making any final decisions right now. That's just a direction to prepare something. But so I understand that we kind of want to do a two-step process with Tynan Village being first and most important. And I also understand that if we can execute the full thing, the full analysis under the procurement contract, fine. But if not, let's split it up and we can do Tynan Village first under procurement, and then we can come back to modify that, which would then be, if it goes past procurement, we'd need a contract extension or amendment or whatever it may be in order to go over that procurement cap. But we want to make sure that the public has an opportunity to comment and that we do everything with sunlight, as Vice Chair Buder mentioned earlier. So in the interest of speed and timing, let's focus on Tynan now. Let's keep it under the procurement contract limit, or procurement limit rather, and let's prepare whatever it is we need to, so that at the next meeting, we can hear a report. Oh, where's Paul? We can hear a report. We're just summarizing everything, Commissioner Miller. You didn't miss out. Just a summary on the discussion we had before, so that this, excuse me, the direction is clear to Ms. Sturgeon.
I'm back, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So the things that we covered in your absence, which were very few, we're going to break it into two pieces, with Tynan Village being most important, but an understanding that we still, you got to eat the whole elephant and not just one bite and call it done. We will do Tynan Village as the first step. We'll do Tynan Village. We'll try to keep that under the procurement limit. That way, Ms. Sturgeon can present to us, a request for authorization at the next meeting and not make that a multiple meeting request. If we can do everything under the procurement cap, great. We can talk about it at the next meeting and vote. If not, we'll bring it back in a subsequent meeting for the rest of the elephant, the other icebergs. We'll bring that back as an amendment or an adjustment to that contract once it gets above that limit, if that happens. That's how I understand it. Any questions or any questions or comments from the commissioners regarding how I understand it, whether anybody understands it differently?
Yes. So just to clarify that we are not trying to circumvent procurement. We are going to do this in specialized engagements. So our first engagement will be the Tynan Village transaction. And then if there are any recommendations based out of that, then we will do separate engagements. So it's not that we are trying to avoid procurement. We are looking for specialized engagements due to this need for speed to have this situation addressed.
All right, seeing no other questions or comments from the board, we've already gone to public comment. So I'll ask for the last opportunity to speak your mind before we decide that Ms. Sturgeon has the direction we would like to give her and move to the next item. Okay, seeing no one else, we will move to the next agenda item. Thank you everyone for indulging that conversation. Unfortunately, I didn't catch that I hadn't asked to have that agendized when Ms. Tebbs was working with me about this month's meeting packet, and I thought it was important to not let that slip another month before we talked about it. So now we will go to item 8E, which I unintentionally tried to do too soon. And 8E is a discussion and vote on appointments to the Finance and Development Committee. Very broadly and briefly, the chair typically does not serve on committees. And because I was on the Finance Development Committee, and now that I'm the chair of the board, I need to come off of that committee and someone needs to go onto that committee. In order to facilitate that, we had that vote early in the meeting to effectuate that change, because I, like this other item, forgot to ask Ms. Tebbs to put it on the agenda. And just, for the sake of speed and efficiency, we had one person who was the chair and I was on the committee. And now that I'm the chair, I think it makes sense to put that other person on the committee just as a straight change. But if people have comments or questions or concerns, of course you should voice them to the group. So it would be my intention to ask Commissioner Healy to replace me and join the Finance and Development Committee if he would accept.
Thank you, Chair Wizard. I'd be honored to accept and serve again with Commissioner Gama on the Finance and Development Committee.
Wonderful. Does anybody object?
You get me too.
Speak now or forever hold your peace, Commissioner Healy.
I would be honored to join Commissioner Booter and Commissioner Gama on the Finance and Development Committee.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Not hearing any objections, I will take that as a unanimous second for a nomination and then ask for public comment on this new business item regarding Commissioner Healy's appointment to the Finance and Development Committee. Anybody
John,
in the chat?
Excuse me, are you making this a motion? You can appoint Kevin without a motion as the chair of the board.
No, we're going to just do the straight nomination, but I wanted to make sure there were no objections and to make sure anybody in the public had an opportunity to speak on the item. Since we agendized it so last minute, I wanted to make sure we didn't miss anybody's voice. So I take it no one on the line, Sandy?
Nobody's on the phone. No,
Great, and I
no.
don't see anybody with their hands up, so we'll just give it a second in case someone on the Zoom call changes their mind and wants to say something.
No calls here.
Seeing no one, we'll close public comment and take it back to the board. I heard no objections, and Commissioner Healy is excited to join the Finance and Development Committee, so we will consider that nomination complete and the appointment complete. So thank you very much, Commissioner Healy, and appreciate your service there.
Thank you, Chair Wizard.
Oh, no, really, the pleasure is all mine. So that concludes the items of new business, and we will move on to our information items. Ms. Sturgeon, would you please guide us through item 9?
Okay, so item 9A is the finance report. So this is an interim report, so this is not the full quarterly packet. So the basically we're covering 2 months here. I did want to highlight just on the summary report that comes out to you that I'm going to start working towards getting more, statistical information to you. So when you look at the accounts payable stats, so I just kind of wanted to highlight the volume of work that is done by the finance team and the accounting team. So the chart here, we're basically looking at how many transactions were posted in that 2-month period. So we're looking at over 11,000 transactions that processed through. So 11,000 transactions. So we're talking, some have POs. There's always work behind a transaction. So really the whole agency they touch those transactions. So Maria's team, they're the back house between the Section 8 transactions. That's Maria's team. They're putting the information in, they're meeting with the tenants, they're meeting with, the clients that we serve. The AP, 3,900 transactions. That's, it's one person working on that. So that's invoices, POs, process. It's a lot of transactions going through there. Also, I have the stats on the HCV. So when you look at the HCV for July and August, you see there is a differential between the HAP payments. And so the payments that we received in being 4 million and the payments going out, which were 3.7. Again, we are getting front loaded the HAP for the emergency housing vouchers. So that's running close to 300,000 a month. So once we get the families up on those emergency vouchers, then those numbers will start tying in a little closer together. But right now they are front loading, and you'll hear in Maria's report about the families that are out looking for housing right now. So they are making it through. The referrals are coming in. We wish the referrals were coming in a little faster, but they're coming in at a pretty steady pace. So you have the interim report right there. So if anybody has any questions on the interim financial report just for the 2 months. All right. Then we move on to, seeing no questions, we'll move on to 9B, which is the human resources scorecard. So basically the things that I wanted to highlight with regards to that, you know, we continue our COVID protocols and we're working with staff on that. We did start a monthly birthdays and briefings. So the first Wednesday of every month, we will have socially distant cupcakes and gathering outside. And at that point, I will be giving updates to the staff with regards to any activities that are going on in programs. The directors can give updates on, you know, property management, Section 8. It's just a good time to get information delineated out to the staff directly so that there's no, you know, telephone kind of he said, she said, or I didn't hear. So it's a good time just to give briefing updates on what we're working on. Also, we're still working on our recruiting. We'll have a update on the union negotiations in closed session. We did complete agency-wide sexual harassment training, so that is completed. And then we are working on a training program for 2022, laying out what we wanted to get accomplished from an HR perspective, which ties back to the executive report where we showed the certifications that employees are achieving. So we think it's really important that, you know, that, again, property managers are taking the tax credit classes. Maria's team, they're taking the eligibility classes. We really want to focus on education and sharpening of skills because that's only going to help us in the long run. So that is really something that we wanted to focus in on. Are there any questions on the HR scorecard? No? Okay. So then if there's no questions, we would move on to 9C, which is the development report. Is there someone from HDC that would be doing the development report?
Is Nora still there? Marilyn? 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 Marilyn's there. I don't know if she's...
Let's just give it a second and see if somebody unmutes.
For the benefit of the public, we're on item 9C, the development report, and we're trying to see if we can find someone from HDC to make that report.
You know, for the purpose of speeding things up, do we want to move on and see if we can handle in the HDC meeting?
Yeah, let's go ahead and move it over to the HDC meeting then. Let's go to 9D, property management report. Jose Acosta, you're muted.
Good night, good evening, commissioners. Just want to go over the property management report. We have finalized 3 of the 4 properties have been inspected by REAC inspectors. We're only pending property 804. I outlined our scores on there for you to review. We have also been working closely with Darlene's team on the RA project. We've been sending about 20 files per week for them. We have the staff review them, and then we review them, and then we send them to Darlene's team for them to do a final overview of the information and ensure that they have all the information that's necessary. We've been also working with NEF, which is one of the general partners, to do an inspection, a remote inspection. Most of the investors and tax credit agencies have been doing remote inspections to the property. So NEF just send their package, they'll be completed. So that's due November 15. We're working on those documents, and those should be sent by next week. King City Migrant will be closing at the end of this month. We have asked for a special extension for one family because due to COVID, one of the family members is unable to vacate the unit until after his quarantine is over. So it will be another 10 days after the center closes, and we foresee that that will be granted, and the tenant will be able to stay for those additional 10 days. But as soon as the center is empty, then we will start the rehab process to get the property ready for the following year. And we also, Darlene went ahead and approved the CNA for that property. So the procurement manager is engaging that company to complete the CNA, which should be probably completed in the next 30 days, depending on their schedule and their availability. But we assume it's probably going to happen in the next 30 days. Another thing I wanna talk to the commission about is we received several notices from different properties regarding water conservation measures. We're working with the cities, different cities. City of Castroville mainly right now has sent us notices about water conservation measures, and they're going to be limiting the water that we consume at the property. So we're gonna have to work with residents and our landscaping company to minimize the amount of water that we use at the sites. I'm also working with a representative from the County of Monterey. We're looking to do some orientations for residents. Because of COVID, we are trying to find a means to make to do these orientations is regarding smoking. They're promoting non-smoking in inside units or common areas. So I'm working with them on that front, and we're trying to find an alternative to having an actual live meeting with the residents. PDM, we have been working and getting the APRs completed. We're also working on getting the grant and a response for the audit, which Darlene and property management will be meeting together to develop a plan to tackle those findings. It's mainly, we have to have a better oversight of Sun Street. And we're going to be having a meeting probably tomorrow at 4 p.m. to go over those items and develop a plan to cover those findings, get them corrected, and send information back to PUD. We've been having a bit of a difficulty housing a unit at haciendas because of the income limits. But we were able to find a family. The unit was housed today. The unit was vacant for about 73 days, but we were able to house a unit today. So we're happy for that. We're finding other applicants and that are qualified for the remaining of the vacancies. And we're trying to house those in the next 30 days. So we should be okay with our vacancies. And that's about it. That's all I have, unless the commissioners have any more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I just have one quick question, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't allow smoking in the units, so do we?
No, we don't.
Or the property, I mean?
We don't allow any smoking in common areas or inside the units. As of June 2019, that was when we passed the new policies. And but some of the residents still do smoke sometimes. We have to follow up with them, have to give them lease violations. But we wanna educate them. So the county has this program that will give them orientations, will give them information. It will be good for them to have, so that they can see that it's not just our policy, but the county and the city are pushing for this as well. That way they can see that it's other agencies, the other entities that are pushing for this, and it's not just us harassing them with a non-smoking policy. So that's why I want to kind of push that. But right now it's difficult because we can't congregate and we can't have a lot of people in one place at a time. So we were holding off on that. But if we can have maybe small sessions with 10 or 15 people at a time in a community room, then we'll try to see if that's a possibility.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Acosta. I'm reminded of a program the county has that I think you're already speaking about. I know it is tobacco retail licensing, but it's not that program. But it's similar folks. I think they're in public health, and there's a program regarding non-smoking and attached housing because of the shared ductwork and shared error that if you smoke in apartment 1A in the bottom, apartment 2D, on the other corner, is still going to get some amount of that secondhand smoke. And I know that there's work around limiting that indoor smoking to protect people who choose not to smoke from secondhand smoke. I heard you say June 19 was when the board passed that policy, so that's good. Maybe we might be able to find a low cost support from that county office to help us engage in that. And not that we couldn't do it in-house, but just if they have that bandwidth, then we don't have to set down what we're doing to take on a new thing and then take a step back to pick up what we had set down. We can do that, in parallel with their staff bandwidth. So just, off the top of my head, I'm sure you're already all over it, but I wanted to make sure it got covered.
Yeah, we'll look at all the other any options or assistance we can get. I mean, it's very important for us because it helps the health of everyone in the complex. Not only their health, but it also helps us keep the units safe and sanitary for other residents. But any type of assistance we can get, we'll look for it.
Okay, great. The name that comes to mind, he could definitely point you in the right direction, is Gonzalo Coronado at the County Public Health Office. He helped us in the city of Seaside with our tobacco retail licensing program, and I know that he would have the right contacts for you.
You said Gonzalo Coronado?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your report. Back to you, Ms. Sturgeon, for 9E.
Okay. 9E, we have the housing programs with Ms. Madera.
Maria?
Okay. Okay, I would like to report on our housing department. We are currently, we opened our waiting list for Casanova Plaza for Project Base. We opened our waiting list for 2 weeks. We are currently working on the HCV applications also, and also for the emergency housing vouchers. As you know, we received 269. We are currently working with all the partner agencies. We're also working with HUD, how for us to be able to collaborate and help our clients to lease up and try to find housing. And currently we did open a position for a housing navigator, so we are waiting for that. My staff in the eligibility department is interviewing clients coming in. We do receive referrals based on from COC. We also have been working with families, the ones that have a voucher. We have extended their expiration date until December 31st, 2021. HUD gave us a COVID waiver, so we haven't really denied any families on their search time. We have been working with them. Lucila Vera has been extending some of these vouchers because of their reasonable accommodation of a disability. So we are going to be contacting some of these families that do have a voucher and try to see what is the barriers, what kind of issues are they having. And a lot of it is, it's COVID. They have bad landlord references or bad credit. So those are some of the problems that we're having with some of our clients that are not able to find housing. And also because of the market is very tight. Like Darlene mentioned, we're going to get together to see what we could do is come get together and try to find landlords, find incentives, because the market is really tight. A lot of families are not moving out and they're staying in their units. So we're trying to see what can we do to get more units under Section 8 or landlords that would participate in our programs. So we are trying to do our best to try to get families into housing. I know from the emergency housing vouchers, HUD is aware of the issues that we have. Agencies from the 15 partner agencies, they do have housing navigators. They are also trying to help families to secure housing, but the market is so tight, we don't have enough units in the Monterey County. Unless the board has any questions on my board report, or they want me to add anything on my board report, I'm open.
Thank you very much, Ms. Madera. Any questions or comments from Ms. Madera? All right, seeing none, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's a very thorough report. Ms. Sturgeon, our strategic goals. Your mute is still active.
Sorry, I have alarms going off in here. I'm just going to be working to start reframing and start agendizing this back into new business. So I'll start working with the development of new strategic goals and trying to set a time where we can actually, maybe do a virtual board retreat to get some new things together, because we really do need to have a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. So we really need to work on getting that actually on paper and get that action plan into place. So I'll be working on bringing that next month.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I see that we have some closed session business, but I am aware that we have some colleagues from HDC on the line. Ms. Sturgeon, is it your opinion that we should take a recess from this meeting and go into HDC?
Well, our union negotiator has been waiting for 2 hours. He's been waiting since the clock, so I really would like to, go into that closed session. Are we able to maybe move the HDC meeting to a different night? Or
so just to be clear, I'm hearing that you think that the closed session will take some time.
I mean, we have 2 items that probably will take a little while to do. Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Miller, in your role as the HDC chairperson, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's really only one item that or actually, because we also have the Titan Village annual meeting that has to be completed tonight. So we have basically on the HDC agenda is only the election of officers that has to take place. There's nothing else really on the agenda. And then that quick Titan Village meeting that has to occur. I'm not sure what the process would be for moving those to another date, if we could even do that. And unfortunately, with Starla not feeling well and not being here, I'm not sure.
Hold on.
Yeah, no, those are valid concerns. Let me try.
Director Miller,
yes.
You could possibly adjourn to the call of the board to a different day. It's really up to what the directors want to do. If you feel that that's something you want to take care of tonight, or if you want to postpone it a day or to a different date that works for everybody.
Okay, then we'd be able to do that.
In the past, we have you adjourn to you return to a date specific in time.
Yeah, Commissioner Miller, we heard from that attorney earlier today that you'd have to gavel in that HDC meeting, but as long as we adjourn to a date within 5 calendar days, we can continue that meeting. I don't know if that's, I don't know.
I mean, I'm fine with doing that, and that may give us an opportunity to give us more time to get the stuff done. So I'm fine with doing that if we want to adjourn to that meeting and then come back to this meeting. And then maybe what we could do is I'll call that meeting, adjourn it, and then maybe Nora could reach out and see within the next 5 days what day would work for each of us, so we could hold that quick meeting. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Director Miller, another suggestion, if possible, if that's something that you're going to do, maybe you can use the same Zoom meeting to hold that brief meeting instead of having everybody log out and log back in and log back out and log back in. You might lose people.
We could just stay right here.
So yes. Can we do that then?
Yeah, we can stay right here.
Then if that's fine with you, John, I'd be willing to call that meeting to order right now, and we'll take that.
Well, we have to adjourn. We have to
hold on.
Do a call to the chair of our meeting.
Is the link for the HDC meeting the same link as the one for this meeing?
No, there's 2 different links, but there's a phone number where the public calls in that doesn't affect the links that we're in.
Yeah.
I'm worried that if somebody, there may not be anybody, but I'm worried that if there is somebody trying to get into the HDC meeting, that if we do the HDC meeting in technically a different place.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Yeah, so I think we'd have to adjourn this one. We'll have to go over to that other one.
Yeah, it's on another Zoom.
Start it up on the other Zoom.
Yeah.
Do
the vote. Do the
vote
postpone.
to postponement and then come back to
here.
this one. Is that what we'd like to do then?
Well,
I mean, I'm good
from
with
your
that.
experience. From your experience, Commissioner Miller, how long do you think it would take to elect the officers and to then, because we could call the tenant village meeting, and if each one takes 5 minutes, I mean, we've spent 5 minutes discussing how we're going to do this. We could have been.
I think it would take less. I believe it would take less than 5 minutes to do each of them. I honestly do. I don't believe there's anything in there.
Then I just go and do it. I text the union negotiator. I haven't heard back from him yet. So if it's only going to take like 5 minutes, then just go do those meetings. I'll stay here and keep this room open with Sandy, and then you can come back in.
So John, you're making a call to the chair. You're closing that to close it.
We will recess from this meeting to dispense of the business at HDC and then reconvene upon the conclusion of that business.
Okay, at what time is it? At
7:19 p.m.
7:19.
7:19. Thank you.
Okay. Meet everyone over on the other side.
Go on the other one.
Okay. Thanks.
I'll
Bye.
stay here. And Sandy, you can stay with me so the meeting will stay up.
I'm staying. To my chagrin. No.
Yes.
Hello.
Everybody on board back?
Did you
back?
let?
I'm back.
1, 2,
Okay.
3,
This is Viviana.
6.
Welcome
Yes. I
back.
think we're all here.
Yay. We missed you so.
7:36.
Yes, thank you. So we will return from our recess at 7:36 p.m. Thank you, Ms. Tebbs. And continue with the agenda. We're now on commissioner comments, item 10. Anything from commissioners?
Oh, maybe none. No comments?
Yeah, I see no comments. I'll just very quickly say thank you so much for your patience as I stumble through my first meeting as your board chair, and also to put out a open invitation that if you have any business that comes before or under the purview of the board, just let me know and we'll make sure to get it on the agenda. I don't, it's not for me to control the agenda to prevent you from dispensing of the authority's business, and you should feel empowered to bring things to the attention of the other commissioners. So anything you need to get onto the agenda, let me know. Happy to chat with Darlene and shape it so that we can have that fruitful discussion. That open invitation for as long as you allow me to be your chairperson. That said, we'll move to closed session, item 11. Darlene, will you be reading us in, or should I do that?
Yeah, I'll go in. I'm going in closed session with you now. Sandy, did you
we need to drop off everybody that isn't going to be in closed session.
Yeah, hold on just a second. Let me give
Did you-
the admonishment.
Yes.
Yes.
So first of all, I need to know, Sandy, who are you assigning as the host?
You as soon as I can.
Okay, because I'll be in both sessions, so that's fine.
You're going to be the host.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
All right. And I see Darlene Sturgeon is the host now. So we have our technical piece settled.
Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. I was just going to say, for compliance with the Brown Act, we will let the public know what we're doing. The Board of Commissioners will meet in closed session for the following purposes and reasons. Item 11A, Government Code Section 54957.6. Conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives are Dana Marshall, Darlene Sturgeon, and Maria Madera. The employee organization